I really just point to the present happening and the simplicity of what is right here, right now. The sound of the siren, all the wonderful colors and shapes, sensations in the body, the breathing. The little gurglings of our youngest friend over there. And just to notice that this present happening is happening effortlessly by itself. We don't have to strive to make it happen. We don't have to look for it anywhere else. Meow, 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 meow. It just happens effortlessly by itself. And it's always happening right here, right now, in this awake space of presentness, awareness. This here now is ever present but ever changing. In fact, it's nothing but change, really. So no solid, persisting thing ever really forms here. It's a formless movement. From which nothing stands apart. It's one whole, undivided, seamless happening. And if you really look with awareness to see if you can find the boundary between inside of you and outside of you, you may discover that there is no actual boundary. That you can think of a boundary, like the skin, but when you actually look with awareness to see if you can find this boundary, there isn't one. The boundary is like the line on a map between one country and the next country. It's a conceptual boundary on a map. But if you go to the actual place, the earth itself and the air is not actually divided. It's one whole seamless happening. And the same is true if we look for the boundary between inside of me and outside of me. We see that there's really no boundary there, except as a mental image or a thought or an idea. And everything that appears in this boundless space of here now, does it not? The image of your body, the image of the other so-called other bodies, the image of the books and the incense and the little statues and the beads and the DVDs and the CDs, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, the sounds of the traffic. It all appears here now in this aware, awake space that is ever present. You could say that this awake space, this here now, never comes, it never goes, and it never stays the same. And there's space here for everything we might notice. There's space for the sound of the airplane or the helicopter, whatever it is. There's space for the sounds of traffic. There's space for all these apparently different people. There's space for every thought, every sensation, every mood, every form of weather. And nothing ever stays the same, so any experience that comes, any state of consciousness that comes, is going to be a temporary experience. But the experiencing itself, the seamlessness of being, is always right here, right now. And this present happening is incredibly simple. It's unavoidable, it's obvious, it's effortless. You cannot attain it because you cannot get out of it. You are it, it's right here, it's simple. But we get, because of our very complex thinking abilities, we end up getting very confused by our thoughts and our concepts. And our thoughts and concepts, which are abstractions, representations of reality, are kind of like maps. And as they say, the map is not the territory. But we forget that. It seems obvious, but we forget that, and we try to actually live in the maps. And you know, it's like the map of London has been very useful to me while I've been here in finding my way around. But if I were to just look at the map, I would miss the reality of London. And the reality of London is something that we can't really pin down. We can't avoid it or deny it, but we can't really get hold of exactly what it is. It's always changing and moving, and it's never the same from one second to the next, and it's alive, and it's very vivid and present. And that's where the juice is, not really in the map. The map is just a tool for finding the right tube station or the right street. And similarly, our spiritual maps are just tools, they're pointers, they're descriptions, but we mistake them for the thing that they're trying to describe, and then we get very confused trying to figure out how this map relates to this other map that seems to be different, and how to reconcile them. And we start looking for these things like enlightenment and awakening, and we look for, as they say, we look for love in all the wrong places, we look for enlightenment in all the wrong places. We think it's something out there that we have to find in the future, that we have to attain, instead of recognizing that what it really points to is simply being awake to what has never been absent, being awake to what is right here, right now, being awake to what we are, to what is, to this seamless, undivided, ungraspable happening. And any description of this happening is only going to be a description. It's never going to be the thing itself. So anything we say is kind of never quite right, because the words cannot capture this. But this is unmistakable, just the redness of the red and the blackness of the black and the vividness of the colors and the shapes and the sounds. That is just unmistakable. And we cannot doubt being here. We cannot doubt our own presence, not as Joan or Tom or Mary, because that's something we learned. But we cannot doubt our own presence as this awareness, this presentness, this present happening. That is impossible to doubt. Even if we say it's a dream or it's an illusion, the actuality of it is still undoubtable. The bare happening itself. So whenever we get caught up in the world of doubt or belief or confusion, trying to figure out, have I got it yet, or is so-and-so enlightened, or is so-and-so as enlightened as so-and-so, or am I enlightened or am I not enlightened, or how does this teaching compare to that teaching? Maybe it's possible to just come back to the simplicity of what cannot be doubted, the simplicity of this happening, this beingness, this aliveness right here, right now. And in this, there are no problems. There may be pain or discomfort, but there are no problems without thinking and remembering and projecting and imagining. And those are things that need to happen sometimes. It's not that those things are bad. They're part of what this whole happening is doing. Mapping and thinking and projecting and imagining and remembering are part of this whole happening. But our confusion is always in the map, not in the territory. Being, right here, right now. That cannot be doubted, that cannot be avoided. that is impossible to miss, that takes no effort to find, because it is effortlessly already here. And no one owns this. It takes thought to conjure up me, the owner, or you, the owner, or me, the thinker, or me, the author of my life story. Our actual experiencing is just that everything happens by itself. An urge happens, an intention happens, a thought happens, an interest happens, an action happens, the movement of awareness and attention happens. Everything happens by itself. Even effort, the appearance of my effort, happens by itself, and attributing it to me, Joan, this fictional character that I've learned is me, that takes thought. But the actual experience is just thought appearing, sounds appearing, feelings appearing, colors appearing, shapes appearing. And this undeniable presentness that is never not here. So, maybe I've said enough.
And it's like a different level of consciousness. But it's not. I mean, obviously, it's all, as you say, it's all the same thing. But I think once you've had an experience like that, there is no permanent shutting down ever again. Yeah,
I think you could say that maybe you get, say, defensive, and in that moment of defensiveness, you're defending this me. But there's also some realization that that's a story, that's not really the truth, and that there's a bigger context. And even in that moment of contraction, it's like when you see in the old example of the rope that gets mistaken for a snake. You know, when you see that it's a rope, then your fear melts away. And you may again mistake it for a snake at some point, but if that happens to you again and again and again, each time it's going to get a little less believable. Or, you know, every time you see the mirage of a lake in the desert sands, your temptation to run after it is going to get a little less tempting. So I think these things there is a certain unfolding in that sense. But
is there always the danger, though, that once that's happened, you're then trying to chase your tail, like a dog chasing its tail, to get it back again?
Yes,
which creates a whole new illusion.
Yeah, that's really common. I mean, that we have some experience of clarity and spaciousness and emptiness and whatever, and then it seems to go away, and so then we're trying to get it back, and what we're trying to get back is the instead of recognizing that it's right here, right now, what we do is we think it's back there in that experience I had before, and we're trying to recreate that experience we had before. So,
which is a cognition.
And then we start trying to remember, what did I do to get there, and how can I repeat that, and yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why did you decide to write about death for your next book? What interests you in that?
Oh, death.
Yeah.
Well, death kind of interests everybody, I think. And the older you get, the more interesting it becomes. Why am I writing about death for my next book? Well, really just because it's about death. It has to do with death and getting older, and it's partly that just because that's what's up in my life. And a lot more people are dying, and I'm getting older, and so, getting old seems to be kind of very much like the spiritual journey in a way, because it's a loss of control, a loss of self-image, a loss of abilities, a loss of friends, a loss of everything, and death is kind of the great boogeyman, the great fear. That's kind of our root fear, that I won't be here anymore, and that fear is really based on a false idea. It's like in the old days, people were genuinely afraid about if they sailed out into the ocean, they would fall off the edge of the earth. But that was based on a false concept, a false map of what the earth was like. So in the same way, our fear of death is based on a false idea that I am this story, I am this mirage, I am this little me, and there's a beginning and an end and I'm going to die, and then somehow I'm still going to be here like I was buried alive, trying to get the story back and not being able to get it back or something. Whereas in reality, every night in deep sleep, this whole movie of waking life goes off, and the me who cares about all this disappears completely, and it's totally peaceful. And in reality, we cannot find a beginning or an ending to the body, because the body is really an abstract idea of something that in reality is movement, inseparable from everything around it. And this awareness, this consciousness is not really encapsulated the way we think it is. So the whole notion of falling off the edge of the earth is very much like the notion that I'm going to die and not be here anymore and eek, So it's when you really see the wholeness of being, the seamlessness of everything, the undividedness of everything, then there is no fear of death. There may be that immediate fear, if a truck is coming towards you, that panic feeling, that's just a survival instinct of the body. That's part of our healthy survival mechanism. But the fear of death that we have, where we sort of dread it or something, that disappears in that understanding of undividedness. So, and I've been with people dying for whom death was a very beautiful experience for all concerned, and even though there may have been grieving and sadness in it too, but so I'm also just trying to share that it doesn't have to be this horrible, gloomy thing. So, yeah. So, perhaps more to the point, actually. But anyway, so the map, it's not whether it's sort of conceptually accurate, it's more whether it opens something up, whether it kind of dissolves. What all the maps are really trying to do is to dissolve the false ideas, to dissolve the false sense of separation, to wake us up from the hypnosis. So either it does that and one map works for one person and it doesn't work for another person. So, I would say it's just a map. As for the suffering question, our suffering is all in the map. That's our confusion, our suffering, our doubt, all of that is in the map world. And so this waking up from the map, or seeing the map as a map, is waking up from suffering, not necessarily once and for all forever, like the previous question about enlightenment, but in this moment now. Because really there's only this moment now, so awakening is never something that happened in the past or will happen in the future. It can only happen right now. And it's simply the falling away of looking for it in the next moment or some future moment or referencing some past moment. It's simply waking up to this moment, right here, right now. And whether we describe that as awareness and the content of awareness, or whether we describe that as one seamless happening, or whether we describe that as suchness or thusness or just this, those are all maps. And they may or may not dissolve things for a particular person. But because it's really all pointing to not getting hold of something new, but just, it's not about getting something, it's about relaxing that sort of grasping, seeing through and relaxing that grasping movement of the mind, and just recognizing this ungraspable aliveness.